We'll keep feeding it in, checking the fitment, feeding it out.
Okay, connecting the pipe.
Yep, pretty much all of it.
Hey, there we go.
Are we going for that Boss sponsorship, or? Because I can hold the can up and make it look pretty. How we going?
How you going? Another install on this thing behind us. You might know this guy.
Hi.
Some of you that are new to the channel probably don't. This is Rowan. He runs another channel on YouTube called The Average Garage, and we've done some cool stuff together over the last. We got a buzz in here, don't we?
It's a dragonfly.
Oh, we got a dragonfly. We got a friend.
Yeah, supervisor.
Supervisor. We've done a few things over the last 12 months on the Ranger. We did the first install of the new Hurricane Fab tailgate storage unit.
That was fun.
That's cool. You get to get your grinder out and
cut up a brand new car. That was interesting.
What could go wrong, hey?
Nah,
possibly.
That's it.
That's seriously.
Where is it?
Buzzing.
It'll be up the top in one of the rafters. Disaster averted for now.
Disaster. Yeah.
Disaster?
Disaster?
Disaster? You need a coffee.
I need a coffee, surely. I'm pretty excited about today, actually, because this is something I've been really keen to explore for the next gen, and primarily because I do a lot of towing and obviously a lot of off-roading as well.
It's making the car work.
Making it work, yeah. So I run what's called a Scan Gauge 2. It's a little device that sits on in front of me when I'm driving, and it allows me to monitor things like my transmission temperature, engine temperature, and whether it's doing a regen as well with the DPF. So it's actually great. I recommend you having a look at one if you don't, because
the important stuff.
The important stuff, yeah. What you get in this is a nice looking electronic dash, but it's actually it's just a line, and that line pretty much doesn't move. So you don't really know till things are too hot. So although this is not a video about a Scan Gauge, invest in something like that if you want to get a better idea of
monitoring the vitals.
Monitoring the vitals, yes.
Yeah.
Vital signs. Yeah, it's just like wear a watch and you can check whether your heart rate's.
You see it, flatlining. Cool.
It's bad.
Yeah.
The reason for that is transmission. It's something that's very important in the vehicle.
Very expensive.
Very expensive, yeah. And in this particular car, we have a 10-speed transmission. These were around for a while, also in the PX Ranger as well, or later models of the PX.
Same as Amaroks.
Yep. Ford Mustang as well.
Mustang, yep.
Yep, has that as well.
Strong box, reliable.
Yep.
But yeah, you want to keep those temps down.
Yep.
So you're going to keep the temps at a nice, happy level. Obviously, when you're towing, you're pushing, especially bigger tyres. Yep. When you start pushing more load through that engine and through that trans, you're going to get higher temperatures. If you get higher temperatures, you're going to start cooking the oil. And a lot of boxes nowadays are sealed for life. But yeah, you take care of that oil, you'll get a lot longer out of your trans. Easy said.
This has been reliable for me, but I've had a couple of occasions where I've noticed the transmission getting really hot, like above 100 degrees.
Especially towing the camper up that hill when you're fire evacuating.
Yep. And I couldn't put my finger on that, but I'm pretty sure it was the transmission running too hot. I lost engine power for a period of time, and I had to winch up a really steep hill with a 2.8 ton van on the back. So that was fun.
In panic times.
Yeah. With a fire emergency. But look, other than that, it's been reliable, but I have noticed it can run a bit warm when towing the van. So precautionary measures I do are things like locking out the high gears. So I normally tow gears 1 to 7 and lock out 8 to 10. That helps keep the transmission a bit cooler, but this is about longevity for me. It's not about keeping it for 5 years and selling it. I want it hopefully long term.
Reliability as well.
So I spoke to a gentleman called Rod. He owns wholesale automatic transmissions. They're pretty much the leaders in Australia when it comes to transmission cooling. Had a chat to him. Funnily enough, he owns one of these vehicles amongst a whole lot of others as well, and so he knows he knows the transmission, which is great. And I said, look, is this something that's necessary? Will it make a difference? And he's like, Mark, this will make a huge difference. It will help prolong the longevity of the transmission, and that's really what this is all about. Keep those temperatures down. So he has kindly provided us with one of his transmission coolers. Oh, one that I prepared earlier. Dun, dun, dun.
Elbow. All right, so yeah, we got nice, you'd call it almost a dual row because it's a twin trans cooler setup. So they're pretty much piggybacking and they will be fed from one into the other. But yeah, we've got 2 coolers on the one mount, which we're all gonna mount up. And once it's plumbed in, everything goes through here instead of through the heat exchanger. Another big thing about getting rid of the heat exchanger is the dreaded milkshake. Do you know about that?
No, tell me.
Ah, here we go. When you have a heat exchanger, which I have a spare somewhere, if I find it, we'll put a photo up of it. Essentially think of this setup here encased in coolant. So you've got a heat, like almost a mini radiator inside coolant. When they breach, they split, and then all of a sudden coolant goes into trans oil goes into coolant, makes a mess of everything, milkshakes itself, destroys the trans, and makes a hell of a mess in the cooling system of the car. Usually followed by $7,000 for a trans.
Ouch.
If not more.
Yeah,
for the 10R, probably more.
Yeah.
So that's for a ZF6, you'd be lucky around 5 to 7 grand. So cheap insurance as well.
Yep. So these are, I'll put the cost in the description below, but they're sort of sub $700 for a unit like that. Hopefully relatively straightforward install, but we're going to give it a crack. The instructions, we've had a look at those. They're pretty comprehensive from Wholesale Automatic Transmissions.
They've done a really good job. For everything I've installed over my years, they're probably one of the most comprehensive because sometimes you get instructions and it says, cooler, yes, done. Thanks. Where's the hardware? No, okay, cool. So they're one of those bolt-in kits.
So pretty much everything you need is in the box. The cooler, the connections. We've got 2 litres of transmission fluid if we need it to top up. We're going to try and
minimise most of that anyways. And they've got good support at Wholesale?
Absolutely.
And getting good support from anybody you buy parts from is key, because there's no point saving $100 getting something from China if you can't contact anybody regarding it. Whereas Australian made, it's PWR as well, which is a really good brand. So PWR, for people who don't know, pretty much do all of the racing gear. So radios and that, they are expensive, but they're worth the money.
Thank you to Rod from Wholesale for making today's video possible. And we're going to take you through the install from start to finish.
The trials and tribulations.
We'll have some fun. We'll get into it, and I hope you enjoy. Pop your questions, comments below. Let's do it.
All right.
So we are always safety first, aren't we? So
always safety first.
This has been parked up in Rowan's shed now overnight. So we'd always recommend with this sort of work, don't do it on a hot transmission. So it's been cooling overnight.
Don't do it after a 4-hour drive.
No.
No good.
You don't want hot transmission fluid near you when you're doing this. So
that, and treat your hands.
Yes.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself some gloves.
Yeah. Oh, no struts?
I know, it's ridiculous.
What's going on?
I know. Come on, forward.
And it's a heavy bonnet too.
Come on. Gas struts, please.
All right.
First step, we've got to basically take the grill out. We've got to pop the plastic guards here. So we'll get our destructions and we'll get cracking.
Destructions are up.
Okay, so we've got 13 plugs on the front of the bonnet here. So there's a little radiator cover we've got to remove. We'll do that now. Oh, he's found it. He's been trying to find this tool for the last 5 minutes, so.
These two right here, and I put them in the wrong drawer, which is why I couldn't find them.
Easy done. So we'll pop them off. We essentially want to get access to the radiator. Now we've got a bull bar on this, so it'll be a bit of shimming to get the grill off, but it should be pretty easy. We'll get these screws underway and then onto the fun stuff.
Our grill, so a couple of 8mm next to the air intake, which isn't here.
This has a snorkel on. It's been a bit of movement with a few things in the engine bay anyway. So we actually have a smaller washer fluid bottle on this one as we would normally on a standard car, which might mean a little bit less work for us, hopefully not more work. As you can see here, we've got a pretty good manual, color photos and steps, so thank you to Wholesale for doing that. Taking our 10mm bolts off and slowly starting to deassemble so we can get access to the grill here. You did it! Many hours later.
7 hours later.
It's like always the simple things, isn't it? That take the longest.
So for anybody playing at home, there isn't bolts in there. There isn't clips in there. It's just, well, there's little plastic clips. Literally just pull it. It feels like it's going to break. But the thing that saved our ass was putting that little hook between the bumper and the grill. So it's a tiny little hook.
Yeah.
And then that was just enough to separate the clips. Scalpel. So we might have to even flex it out a little bit. So you're going to have to like manipulate the plastic. So like to get that pin past that bit there, stuff like that.
Fair to say we're having some issues getting this grill off. It's because we've got the bull bar on. If you didn't have a bull bar,
It would be easy.
it'd be easy. So yeah, top tip,
Do it before you get a bar.
do it before you get a bar. Yeah.
So you got the top unclipped, you unclipped it off the headlights?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it pulled out from the headlights. So is it just the bottom holding it?
Yeah, it's just clipped in at the bottom at the minute. That's all. Okay, hit a bit of a stumbling block. It's probably been a good 30 minutes
And
on
some.
this, and some, maybe longer, on this grill. If you can see behind me, we got it moving. We just could not get it over the bull bar. So the bull bar is the issue here. And look, if you have a vehicle that's got the standard bumper on, you'd be fine. But it's the bull bar here, that's the issue. So we're going to be partially just deassembling the bull bar, just enough to get a little bit of movement at the top.
To rock it forwards.
For it to come forward, and then hopefully we can get that grill out. But it's definitely added a fair bit of time here to the
Figuring it
install,
out.
and working out a plan of attack. Rowan's got the tools.
In speed mode.
Yeah. That's where the got your locator bolts there for the bar, and then
Those ones.
we've just taken out the main support bolts, which we'll go back in after. So we've had to relocate the winch again because we're having issues with the cables interfering with where the cooler is going to sit. The winch cable, so used to sit here, winch controller is now here. This is not actually mounted down at the moment. We've had to undo that. We've got our wiring. We've made a little notch here for the wire to run through so it doesn't interfere with the bottom of the cooler. Okay, connecting hoses now. We've got the rear of the cooler that needs to here, that needs to connect to the front of the cooler here. So it comes with
A half-metre length.
half-metre length, which is a nice tight fit, which is what you want. And then we've got some clips, don't we? Some
Hose length.
some hose clamps. Yeah. Okay, connecting the pipe to the cooler. We've had to chop. We've got one 4-metre piece. We've had to chop in half onto the barb here. Really close to having this cooler in place, but then we've got to do all the fun stuff under the car. We're feeding the longer section of the hoses under the air conditioning condenser.
Yeah, pretty much all of it. Alright,
And we're in.
we've got it kind
Sort
of
of.
situated. So we're going to grab a bolt in. That was definitely the easiest job. That didn't take us an hour. At all.
No.
No, it was 5 minutes.
5? I thought maybe like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just like bang, pop in.
Just straight in. No issues.
No. We're pros, we know what we're doing.
Exactly. It's still fitting perfectly.
It's awesome.
Push against that for us.
Yeah, we're going to put the grill back on now. It does say in the manual to do it at the end of the process, but for us, in order to take this for a test drive, we've got to basically bolt the bar properly back up anyway. So we're going to do it now. Fingers crossed, no leaks. Otherwise, Ron might cry.
I would definitely cry.
You definitely cry.
So like kind of wiggled it in on one side and then squeezed it between everything and
Wiggle, wiggle.
Made life easier.
Yeah. All right, let Debbie lift. What are we looking at?
So we've got trans coolers just up here. This is front drive shaft that goes to your front diff. So you've got two coolant lines coming in, and like we explained before, it's essentially a radiator that's surrounded by coolant. The trans oil goes through the radiator and the coolant naturally cools the outside of it. It's called a heat exchanger. And essentially that's what we're getting rid of for two reasons.
So which one are we getting rid of?
This big boy here.
Okay.
So that's the heat exchanger.
So we might not need to take those bash plates off. What do you reckon? Make it easier?
It might.
Yeah.
It might make life a little easier. I mean, we've got plenty of room, but yeah, it might just make it that bit easier. I think this cross member's going to be more in the way with anything. Be alright if we could get the car full height on the hoist, but unfortunately my shed's too small, so I'm going to have to get a bigger shed one day. Oh, that's why they have 3 clamps, I see. Because there's a plastic T-piece, so you can't clamp the plastic T-piece. So you have to clamp either side of it.
Okay.
That's why.
Where's that? Oh, yeah.
That one that you have to reuse the bit for,
Oh, yeah.
plastic.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
That's
one.
it. Okay. All right, bash plate off.
17 mil. Alrighty, so we're gonna need those clamps.
Okay, we're clamping coolant lines. Purchased some of these clamps from Super Cheap Auto. We need 3 of them. It's by Tool Pro, 3-piece flexible line clamp set. It's about 35 bucks-ish.
Past the 30 mark, it's all downhill from now.
Wait till you get to 40.
Wise words from Mark.
Yep, so tip for those following at home.
Don't get old.
Through the, don't get old, and through the wheel arch is probably the easiest way to get these clamps on. There you go, in this. Okay, this is the goodie bags we get from Wholesale Automatic Trans.
That's the one, and then there should be one big hose clamp in there. That's the one.
I'll get the manual, so it's always good to have. Carefully remove the water pipes by squeezing the plastic clips. Be careful not to damage the plastic clip in the T-piece, which will be reused to connect the hose to the L pipe. You may need to unbolt the heat exchange to disconnect the T-piece.
Challenge accepted. The question is, how much coolant are we going to lose in this process? Alright, it's ready. But usually you need to twist them to break the seal, which I don't think I can get into. Well, oh, that might have it.
Didn't know you were doing domestic duties.
It's all part of the job. At the moment, we're just taking off the trans cooler itself, or the heat exchanger.
Yeah, and you just disconnected?
So that's just the shift cable,
Yeah.
the little bracket up here.
Yeah, you
So
just
that's
temporarily disconnected that one?
Yeah, it's just out of the way at the moment. It's not
Yeah.
fully disconnected, but it's out of the way.
Yeah.
And then I'm about to undo the other 3, and then this heat exchanger is going to come off.
Okay.
And then hopefully we don't lose too much trans fluid. But we've got 2 litres to fill up if we need to, and we'll probably get a drainage tub just under here, so if any more falls out, it'll fall in that. And then yeah, hopefully all those coolant lines are good enough. And then once the heat exchanger is loose, we can pull it off and then fandangle those hoses out, because it's all a pretty tight fit. All of this would have been assembled before the body was even on the car.
Yeah.
Back in the factory, so always fun. Thanks, engineers. We're under here at the moment. The heat exchanger is pretty much all unbolted, so the last thing I want to do before I pull it all the way off the trans is I've got the bungs ready. Now these aren't ready for final fit just yet, but I've also taken the rubber knobs, or the grubs, or whatever you want, blank plates, off of the PWI coolers and put them on there. So if I take this trans cooler or heat exchanger off and it starts pouring oil out, I'm just going to bung these straight in. That's going to block the leak.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to lose as much fluid. So that's going to be my solution. The only thing is, before I ram these in, I'm going to take just a tiny bit of oil and put it on the O-rings and then chuck them in the hole. So that's if it starts leaking. We'll see, we'll lose a little bit of fluid, but we're hoping it's going to be minimal, because we've realised also that the dipstick for this trans is right next to the DPF, which is only the bit that gets the hottest on the car. So, you know, what could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. We didn't lose that much, if you can see here. Hey, here we go. One noisy bird and one heat exchange.
Alright, so this little plastic bit here is what we need to retain. Yep, this bit right here. So we're going to very carefully peel these tabs back a little bit over the ridge so we can remove the plastic bit itself.
Like a surgeon.
Go over this bit. So make sure it's nice and clean with our super clean rag.
Yep.
So now that can go into that hose, into the T-piece. And then the other, so the T-piece is right at the top there, right up there.
Yeah.
And the other hose is this one here, which is going to get the hose clamp. We can either reuse this hose clamp or remove it. And because I did supply this hose clamp here, which is going to go on that hose. The light at the end of the tunnel.
And you're lighting your head. You're shining, the shining light. Okay, so the heat exchange is out, hose clamps are on. So I think we're on the home straight. We're kind of like page 19 at the moment. So
I can see refit bash plates, so we're getting somewhere.
we're just running the hoses through the chassis.
Just making sure they're not touching anything that could be deemed moving.
Yeah.
Make sure they're not in any pinch points. Make sure they're not going to be anywhere that's going to rub, get hot.
Yeah.
Nothing that's going to compromise the hose in any way, shape or form. Trim probably half metre off most of them.
There was one section of hose close to the chassis, so we added a small section of rubber pipe over this as a protective layer, just in case there's ever any rubbing to protect the main hose.
You know, periodically with services that can be checked, and just make sure that that sacrificial layer is wearing instead of the hose itself. And yeah, everything will be honky-dory. Now I'm just going to trim the cable ties so that next person that puts their hand in there is going to slice themselves to pieces, and we're going to be fantastic. Alright, we're not going to put this bolt back in because I don't want Mark to have a gearbox anymore.
So what are you doing there?
We've just removed this bracket, which is actually for what holds the trans cooler up, or the heat exchanger. We can put on this bracket here, which now holds in these two ports. So that's what allows us to get oil out and back into the trans. So this bracket's simply going to go on, screw in, and that's just going to hold those two bungs in there, because there's actually just a couple of O-rings on each one. They push in, Bob's your nana.
Solid.
It's all done. That's better.
On with the brake cleaner.
Alright, so we're about to put the shifter bracket bolt back in, so it's actually a stud. So what we need to do, as per the instructions, we've got two 10mm washers, or M10 washers. We're going to put them on, and what that does is it replicates the thickness of the cooler. So those M10 washers act as pretty much where the cooler would sit, so that this is still the right spacing, it's not going to bottom out, all that sort of stuff. So it just replicates having something in there. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to stick that back up in there, tighten it back up, put the shifter cable back on, tighten that up. Then last bits these hoses, then we can trim them to length, put them on. Once we've done that, we can worry about the trans temp, and then get the trans up to temp. Try not to cook ourselves on the DPF, and then check the level.
Then we're done. Yeah, all going to plan.
Then we go to the pub.
Yay!
And then we get drinks.
Yay!
And then celebrate. So it's going to be fun. We're almost there. Now I can say I've got blood, sweat and tears into this car.
Yeah.
About there, right?
so. Yep.
So then we got just enough for that hose clamp. Same thing with this one.
So we're just going to trim a tiny bit of that conduit. So you want a little bit at the end here?
Yeah, so we just want to leave a little bit for us, so we can always push it back a bit and it'll spring back over time anyways. But we just want to leave a little bit so that when we put the hose clamps on, we have ample access to the hose clamps. So now the fun part is we've got to figure out which one of these goes to the rear cooler. Probably should have marked that. Hindsight. So when you do yours, make sure you mark which hose is the front and rear cooler on the front. We can figure it out, but now it's just a bit of a like, we should have done it earlier.
Cool.
Hindsight's 2020.
We worked it out. But yeah, mark them up when you do it.
So I'm not going to put hose clamps on this yet because I actually want to pull the hoses back off. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to put some trans oil in a pump bottle, and I'm going to hook up the pump bottle to one of these lines and I'll put an adapter on there so it's airtight. And I'm actually going to pump oil through this until it comes back into the trans. If anything, we're going to overfill the trans a little bit. We can live with that. And then that means we'll be close enough to bang on that we know we're not going to be low on level at the very start. And then once it's warmed up, we take it for a drive, then we can check it. But that's a little life hack that you can do. I've done it with the Falcon, and it's just pre-filling all that cooler before you plumb it up. So I will spill a bit more oil. That's what we've got brake cleaner for. And rags. Bunnings life hack. So essentially I want to run this until it starts dribbling out. Alright, now the fun part. Actually, I have a film for this.
Tricky. Look at that.
And now whatever's in this tube will be back in that bottle. Because now I'm just letting gravity feed air back in the top.
Yep.
And it's just feeding back into that bottle. So at the moment we're just putting the hoses the rest of the way on, then we'll put the clamps on. Now once the clamps are on, we're just going to make sure the hoses are up out of the way, they're not rubbing on anything, they're not going to cause any issues. And then that's pretty much done. With that little trick that we've done, we've actually put a tiny bit extra in the gearbox, so if anything, it'll be a little overfull. If it is, we can pull one of these lines off, drain a couple of, 10, 20, 50, 100 mil out of it, whatever it needs.
Yep.
Put it back on, recheck it. All right, so we're cruising along. We're currently at 52 degrees. We're going for a bit of a test drive, make sure the trans isn't doing anything funky, making sure it's shifting nicely. We're slowly creeping up in trans temp. So with the original heat exchanger, one sort of benefit of them, which is probably why the manufacturers do it actually, is that they heat the trans up a lot faster because they use the coolant to act like the engine is obviously warming up the coolant, which also in turn then reverses and keeps the engine cool. But because they are in unison, it actually helps warm the trans up, which is probably why the manufacturers do it. But at the same time, there's obviously that...
They struggle to manage the high heat, the high temperature.
Yeah, that's it. They do the opposite. They warm the trans up, but then they struggle to cool it as efficiently. And then we also have the problem, what mentioned before, of milkshaking, and that can cost you upwards of $10,000 in the right circumstances. So yeah, now we've mitigated that risk. There is no milkshake possibility unless you do a head gasket, God forbid. Mark's cringing. But yeah, now we've mitigated quite a big risk. We're going to have better overall cooling.
We're actually going to be partially deassembling.
Sorry. Ever seen a bash plate fall on somebody's head before?
I don't want to.
Use my head. Watch out for those. Oh yeah, look at the mess you just made on my pristine floor.
This needed a clean, clearly, anyway, so... Okay, we're clamping, what are we clamping?
Oh,
Your lights on. One more. Yes.
is it off? Yeah.
He's off.
He's off. All right. Would you mind, sir, please passing me the elbow?
Not that one? No. Okay.
Less elbow, Chris.
Let's elbow.
Oh,
Did it get you? In the nuts?
right in the tit.
Oh, on the tip.
Right in the tit.